First Chapter Fridays. I'm back. It's Miss Valine here with your first chapter of I'm way too excited to introduce this book, let me tell you, because the book that I have for you today is incredibly sad. Incredibly sad. And it kind of fits my mood. I am in a very big bummer. I think this whole COVID thing is getting to me, and this last Thanksgiving, like not being able to spend it with my friends and family. I'm just like I'm in a kind of a foul mood. Not foul, not like angry, just sad and depressed and kind of feeling sorry for myself. I don't know if you're feeling the same way, but I'm kind of done with not going to school and seeing you guys and seeing my friends and my family and doing all those normal things that we normally do. And whenever I feel like this, I don't like to pick up a happy book. I don't like to try to read something that is completely opposite to how I feel. I kind of want to commiserate with my book. I want somebody who's kind of like feeling the way I'm feeling, I guess. And that's why I chose to read to you today for our first chapter, Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldsberg Sloan. And let me tell you, this is an incredibly sad story. Sad, heart-wrenching. Like, God, I hope none of you have ever will have to go through the things that the character in this story, Willow, goes through. And even though she goes through these horrible things, she is just an incredible inspiration on how she deals with things and how she overcomes them. And I think that's maybe the strength that I need from reading this book, is seeing other people who are down and how they deal with it. And so, Counting by Sevens. This is from the back of the book. The 7 reasons to read this extraordinary novel. Number 1, friendship. It doesn't always happen easily, especially for Willow. But now she has met Mai, a girl with enough energy to tackle the impossible, and one who sees Willow for who she really is. Number 2, oddballs. We all feel like outsiders sometime. Willow's is a genius who has mastered several foreign languages and medical school textbooks, all by the age of 12. Certainly doesn't easily fit in with the crowd. Neither do the other people in this story, filled with terrific, memorable oddballs. The 3rd reason to read this extraordinary novel is hobbies. It helps to have something interesting to focus on, such as Willow's passion for nature. When tragedy strikes, it is the simple act of growing sunflowers that first brings her some pleasure again. And number 4, laughing and crying. Like I said, this is a really, you'll cry. I cried. But despite the tragedy, this is a beautiful, satisfying book. The kind that makes you see your own life in a new way. And through the heartache, you will find yourself laughing. That's kind of what I need right now. And at the wonderfully absurd moments that happen even on the hardest days. The 5th reason to read this extraordinary novel is miracles. Those unexpectedly silly moments are miraculous. This is a story filled with everyday miracles. Number 6, family. And the most miraculous thing of all is a loving family. And 7, the 7th reason to read this extraordinary novel, Willow Chance, herself, whose heart leads her on a path to belonging, a path that is surprising and exhilarating, and without a doubt, one you will never forget. Chapter 1. Willow Chance. A genius shoots at something no one else can see and hits it. We sit together outside the Foster Freeze at a sea green metal picnic table, all 4 of us. We eat soft serve ice cream, which has been plunged into a vat of liquid chocolate that then hardens into a crispy shell. I don't tell anyone what makes this work is wax, or to be more accurate, edible food-grade paraffin wax. As the chocolate cools, it holds the vanilla goodness prisoner. Our job is to set it free. Ordinarily, I don't even eat ice cream cones, and if I do, I obsess in such a precise way as to prevent even a drop of disorder. but not today. I am in a public place. I am not even spying. And my ice cream cone is a big, drippy mess. I'm right now someone that other people might find interesting to observe. Why? Well, first of all, I'm speaking Vietnamese, which is not my native tongue. I really like that expression because, in general, I think people don't give this contracting muscle credit for how much work it does. So thank you, tongue. Sitting here shaded by the afternoon sun, I'm using my Vietnamese wherever I can, which turns out to be very often. I'm talking to my new friend Mai, but even her always slurry and scary because her older big brother, Qua Hung, says a few words to me in their now only semi-secret language. Del Duke, who brought us here in his car, is quiet. He does not speak Vietnamese. I don't like to exclude people. I'm the one who is always excluded, so I know how that feels. But I'm okay with Mr. Duke being an observer. He is a school counselor, and listening is a big part of his counseling. Or at least it should be. Mai doesn't the lion's share of the speaking and eating. I give her my cone once I've had enough. And all I know for certain, with the sun on our faces and the sweet ice cream holding our attention, is that this is the day that I will never forget. 17 minutes after our arrival, we are back in Del Duke's car. Mai wants to drive by Hagen Oaks, which is a big park. Big geese live there year-round. She thinks I should see them. Because she's 2 years older than me, she falls into the trap of thinking all little kids want to stare at something like fat ducks. But don't get me wrong, I appreciate waterfowl. But in the case of Hagen Oaks Park, I'm more interested in the city's decision to plant native plants there than I am in the birds. I think by the look on Dale's face, I can see his eyes in the rearview mirror that he's not very excited about either thing, but he drives by the park anyway. Qua Hung is slumped in the seat, and I'm guessing is just as happy that he didn't have to take a bus anywhere. At Hagen Oaks, no one gets out of the car because Dell says we need to get home. When we first go to the Foster Freeze, I call my mom to explain that I will be late getting back from school. When she didn't answer, I left a message. I did the same thing on my dad's cell phone. It's strange that I haven't heard from either of them. If they can't answer the phone, then they always quickly return my call. Always. There's a police car parked in the driveway of my house when Del Duke turns down my street. The neighbors to the south of us moved out, and their place is in foreclosure. A sign on the dead front lawn says, "Bank owned." To the north are renters who I've only seen once 7 months and 4 days ago, which was on the day that they arrived. I stare at the police car and wonder if someone broke into the vacant house. Didn't Mom say it was trouble to have an empty place in the neighborhood? But that wouldn't explain why the police are in our driveway. As we get closer, I can see that there are 2 other officers in the patrol car. And from the way they are slouched, it seems like they've been there a while. I feel my whole body tense. In the front seat, Kwong Hung says, "What are the cops doing in your driveway?" Mai's eyes dart from her brother back to me. The expression on her face now looks to be a question. I think she wonders if my dad steals things, or if I have a cousin who hits people. Maybe I've come from a whole family of troublemakers. We don't know each other very well, so these would all be possibilities. I'm silent. I'm late coming home. Did Mom or Dad get so worried that they called the police? I left them messages. I told them I was okay. I can't believe that they would do such a thing. Del Duke doesn't even have the car completely stopped before I open the door, which of course is dangerous. I get out and head toward my house, not even bothering with my red rolling luggage that's packed with my schoolwork. I've taken only 2 steps into the driveway before the door opens on the patrol car and the female officer appears. The woman has thick ponytail of orange-colored hair. She doesn't say hello. She just lowers her sunglasses and says, "Do you know Roberta and James Chance?" I try to answer, but my voice won't come out any louder than a whisper. Yes? I want to add, but it's Jimmy's chance. No one calls my dad James, but I can't. The officer fumbles with her glasses. Even though she is dressed the part, the woman seems to be losing all of her authority. She mumbles, okay, and you are... I swallow, but my mouth is suddenly dry and I feel a lump form in my throat. I'm their daughter? Del Duke is out of the car now, and he has my luggage with him as he starts across the sidewalk. Maya's right at his heels. Kwa Hong stays put. The second officer, a young man, then comes around and stands next to his partner, but neither of them speaks. Just silence. Horrible silence. And then the two police officers turn their attention to Del. They both look anxious. The female officer managed to say, "And where do you fit in?" Del clears his throat. He suddenly looks like he's sweating from every gland in his body. He is barely able to speak. I'm Del Duke. I work as a counselor for the school district. I see two of these kids for counseling, and I'm just driving them home. I can see that both officers are instantly relieved. The female officer begins nodding, showing support and almost enthusiasm as she says, "A counselor!" So she heard. I find enough of a voice to ask, "Heard what?" But neither of the police look at me. They are all about Del now. "Can we have a word with you, sir?" I watch Del's sweaty, wet hands release from the black vinyl luggage handle, and he follows the officers as they move away from me, away from the patrol car and out to the still hot pavement of the street. Standing there, they huddle together with their backs turned so that, as I watch, they look like lit by low end of the day sun, like an evil three-headed monster. And that's when they are that's what they are. Because their voices, while muffled, are still capable of being understood. There's been an accident. I heard 4 words. There's been an accident. And after that, in a whisper comes the news that the 2 people I love the most in this world are gone forever. No. I need to rewind. I need to go back. Will anyone go with me? Horrible book. Great book. Sad book. Makes me tear up every time I read that first chapter. Why do authors do this to us? Why do they make us cry at books? I gotta keep reading because otherwise I don't want to end like this. All right, a little bit of chapter 2. 2 months ago, I'm about to start a new school, and I'm an only child. I'm adopted, and I'm different, and I'm strange, but I know it, and that takes the edge off, at least for me. Is it possible to be loved so much? My 2 parents really, truly, love me. I think waiting a long time for something makes it more gratifying. The correlation between expectations and delivery of desire could no doubt be quantified into some kind of mathematical formula. But that's off the point, which is one of my problems and why, despite the fact that I'm a thinker, I'm never the teacher's pet, ever. Right now, I'm going to stick to the facts. For 7 years, my mom tried to get pregnant. That seems like a long time of working on something, since the medical definition of infertility is 12 months of well-timed physical union without any results. And while I have a passion for all things medical, the idea of them doing that, especially with any kind of regularity and enthusiasm, makes me feel nauseated and medically defined, an unpleasant sensation in the abdomen. Twice in those years, my mom peed on a plastic wand and turned the diagnostic instrument blue. But twice, she couldn't keep the fetus. How onomatopoetic is that word, fetus. Insane. Her cake failed to bake, and that's how I came into this mix. On the 7th day of the 7th month, it is any wonder I love the number. My new parents drove north to a hospital 257 miles from their home, where they named me after a cold climate tree and changed the world, or at least our world. Time out. It probably wasn't 257 miles, but that's how I think I need to think of it. 257, 2 plus 5 equals 7. 257 is a prime number, super special. There's an order in my universe. Back to adoption day. As my dad explains it, I never once cried, but my mom did all the way down Interstate 5 South until exit 17B. My mom weeps when she's happy. When she's sad, she just gets quiet. I believe that her emotional wiring got crossed in this area. We deal with it because most of the time she's smiling very wide. When my 2 new parents finally made it to our single-story stucco house in a development at the end of the San Joaquin Valley, their nerves were both shot, and our family adventure had just begun. I think it's important to get pictures of things into your head, even if they are wrong, and they pretty much always are. If you could see me, you would say that I don't fit into an easily identifiable ethnic category. I'm what's called a person of color, and my parents are not. They are 2 of the whitest white people in the world, no exaggeration. They are so white, they are almost blue. They do not have circulation problems. They just don't have much pigment. My mom has fine red hair and eyes that are pale, pale, pale blue. So pale they look gray, which they are not. My dad is tall and pretty much bald. He has seborrheic dermatitis, which means that his skin appears to be constantly in a state of a rash. This has led to a great deal of observation and research on my part, but for him, it's no picnic. If you are now picturing this trio and considering us together, I want you to know that while I don't in any way resemble my parents, somehow we just naturally look like a family. At least I think so. And that's all that really matters. Besides the number 7, I have 2 other major obsessions: medical conditions and plants. By medical conditions, I mean human diseases. I study myself, of course, but my illnesses have been minor and not life-threatening. I do observe and chronicle my mom and dad, but they will not let me do much diagnostic work on their behalf. The only reason that I regularly leave the house, not counting going to the forced prison camp, also known as middle school, and my weekly trip to the central library, is to observe sickness in the general population. I would always be my first choice to sit for several hours every day in a hospital, but it turns out that nursing staff have a problem with that. Even if you're just camped out in a waiting room, pretending to read a book. So I visited the local shopping mall, which fortunately has its share of diseases, but I don't buy anything. Since I was little, I've kept field notes and made diagnostic flashcards. I am particularly drawn to skin disorders, which I photograph only if the subject and one of my parents isn't looking. My second interest, plants. They are living, growing, reproducing, pushing, and pulling in the ground all around us all the time. We accept that without even noticing. Open your eyes, people. This is amazing. If plants made sounds, it would all be different, but they communicate with colors and shapes and size and texture. They don't meow or bark or tweet. We think that they don't have eyes, but they see the angle of the sun and the rise of the moon. They don't just feel the wind, they change direction because of it. Before you think I'm crazy, which is always a possibility, look outside right now. I'm hoping that your view isn't of a parking lot or the side of a building. I'm imagining you see a tall tree with delicate leaves. You catch sight of swaying grass in a wild field. Weeds pushing up through a crack in the sidewalk are in the distance somewhere. We are surrounded. I'm asking you to pay attention in a new way and view it all as being alive with a capital A. My hometown, like a lot of the Center Valley of California, has a desert climate and is flat and dry and very hot for over half of the year. Since I've never lived anywhere else, whole months of days where it's 100 degrees outside seem normal. We call it summer. Despite the heat, there is no escaping the fact that this bright sun and rich soil make the area ideal for growing things once you add water to the equation. And so I did. So where once our house had a rectangle of grass, there is now 40-foot high stand of timber bamboo. I have citrus trees, orange, grapefruit, and lime next to my year-round vegetable garden. I grow grapes, a variety of vines, annual and perennial flowers, and in one small area, tropical plants. To know me is to know my garden. It is my sanctuary. Willow. Oh, I'm so glad I read that second chapter because I feel a little bit better after reading that first chapter. Oh my goodness. You get to really know Willow. You really get to know where she is in her newfound family, her adoptive family. You get to love her and cheer her on. You also get to cry a little bit with her. I hope if you have any want to read this, that you go on to Destiny Quest, that you place a hold on it and request it, so that you can enjoy this really, really tragic but uplifting story by Holly Goldberg Sloan, Counting by Sevens. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you didn't shed too many tears like I did. I actually even stopped the video at one point so I can gather myself. Books do that to me. That's why I love them. Books, when you can make an emotional connection to something, like a book, man, it's like having a good friend to speak to, and boy, do we need friends right now to speak to, don't we? All being alone by ourselves out there. Take care of yourselves. Read a good book. Enjoy even being sad sometimes. Take care. I'll see you next Friday. Bye. Have a great weekend.